Hi everyone, I'm Nora, the blind therapist.
And I'm Ella of Tunnel Eyed Life, aka the editor for the Blind Therapist. Together, we are excited to collaborate and bring you a new podcast series here on the channel called
Life Beyond Sight. Have you ever felt like this world just wasn't built for you? If so, you're not alone. This podcast is geared to talking about the challenges and triumphs of people living with visual impairment, like ourselves.
Life Beyond Sight will also focus on sharing stories and experiences about how we navigate life in this world. So, without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the first episode of Life Beyond Sight. Today's episode is going to be called Meet the Blind Therapist. Here on the channel, you have seen Nora do videos as the blind therapist. So, we thought for the first episode of this podcast, it would be a great opportunity to dive more into that name and find out what made her the blind therapist. So we are going to start with the blind part of that. Alright, let's get to the root of it all. What type of eye condition are you diagnosed with? Then, can you also share how and when you got diagnosed?
Well, my diagnosis is something called bilateral optic atrophy. That actually wasn't my first diagnosis, though. I was first diagnosed when I was 26. Before that, they thought I had something called macular dysphoria. I believe that it was like congenital, so I believe I had it all my life. But since I wasn't diagnosed until 26, like I couldn't prove that. But I also have like anecdotal stories of my aunt. She would tell me at the age of like 3 or 4. Um, she remembers asking me to like get her something from like this table or wherever, and I'd be like, what, where, and then a few moments would go by and I'd see it like right in front of my face. So I'm pretty sure that I had visual issues my entire life. But since it was congenital, since I probably had it since I was born, I didn't know any difference. Like, I didn't know. I thought everyone saw that way, basically, until, my aunt and my cousin both played a huge part, in my life. They kept thinking, oh, okay, like, your vision just isn't like everyone else's. Like there's something going on. So when I was 18, pretty I was an adult. So I was pretty much like, okay, I need to figure this out. I need to find out what's going on because also I struggled a lot throughout life. So like I had a lot of hard times with school, with just all sorts of things. So I started going to the doctors, getting tested, things like that. And also, doctors aren't the greatest either because my first ophthalmologist told me that there was nothing wrong. Like, I was fine. And then I came back to that same aunt, and she's like, no, you're, there's something going on. Like, and she's like, you need to get a second opinion. I'm like, oh, yeah. So I went and I saw a second ophthalmologist, and they noticed, they realized that there was something wrong, so they ordered a whole bunch of tests, all that stuff, and then years later, at the age of 26, I got diagnosed with the bilateral optic atrophy.
Can you tell us what bilateral optic atrophy actually is? Then also, how or what can you see with this condition?
When I first got diagnosed, I didn't quite know what that was. I didn't quite know what that meant because, medical terminology and a bunch of like mumbo jumbo. But it makes a lot of sense because what they told me is there's really nothing wrong with my eyes themselves. Like, I even saw a retinal specialist and he said my retina and my macular was great, which, if you remember, I said my first diagnosis was macular dysphoria, but my ophthalmologist, when they like dilate your pupils and they look like past your eyes, my optic nerve was really small, like a lot smaller than typical like people. And so that is the biggest issue, is not my eyes but the nerve, the processing between my eyes and my brain. So when I see things, when I look at things, I see it correctly and I pick it up, but it takes several moments, more so than the average person, for it to get to my brain and for it to process through to my brain. So when I got that final diagnosis, it made a lot of sense because I'm like, oh yeah. hmm
How did your family and friends react to your diagnosis or visual impairment?
I will tell you the truth. Like I mean, I don't fault my family at all. Especially my mom and my dad. Like, I think they've accepted that there's something wrong, and I'm I mean, no, I know they've accepted that my vision is just not like typical people, but I I don't like a lot of people in my life. I don't think they understand what that means. I've even heard from people like my roommate who's very very close to me that they don't quite like understand completely my vision, which I mean is fine with me because I tell everyone like I love and welcome like questions. If you don't understand, just ask me. I'll explain everything to you. But I think that the reason I wasn't able to get the work done and get diagnosed and whatnot until, I became an adult and I could do that independently is because I don't think my mom and dad noticed or realized that there was something wrong with me. I mean, the fact that like my aunt noticed and my parents didn't, that's another thing for another day, I guess. But short answer is that yeah, I don't think they really realize the kind of breadth of what's going on with me, but they definitely know that there is something going on. They know that I am working on it, and they know that I have a pretty good handle on it. Because I mean, my mom, when we talk now, she has told me like, how proud she is of me, and she has told me that she sees and she notices like how much work I've done and how I've worked so hard and how much she sees has come from it, which means a lot to me.
That is so amazing. I am so happy that you have that now. And I'm also very proud of you because you've done quite a lot already, especially here on the channel too. So keep up the good work there. And you are right, family support really does mean a lot to us in the blind and visually impaired community. Like whether they completely understand it or not, what we're going through and what we're dealing with, just the fact that they're there is always so appreciated. All right, we talked about your diagnosis and how your loved ones are with your blindness. So we can certainly talk more about all of that in future episodes here on the podcast. And I'll even share a little bit more of my perspective on all of that as well. Because at the end of the day, That is really what this podcast is all about, right? Life Beyond Sight is about different point of view and insights into what it's like to be blind or visually impaired and how we deal with this world beyond our sight or lack thereof.
Definitely, because the moniker that I go by on my YouTube channel and Discord and just all over the internet is the blind therapist. And my YouTube channel like focuses on therapy and mental health topics and things like that. But this podcast is, Life Beyond Sight, so mainly gonna focus, the visual impairment part. And I feel that that's such a big and important part because, yeah, going back to what I was just saying, like I feel like I've had to overcome so much like adversity and whatnot to get to where I am today. And another big part of the reason why I wanted to do this and start this podcast is because even in our community, um, and this could have changed a little bit now, but when I first started working with the Lighthouse of the for the Blind, I found out some statistics that said like a lot of blind people have never met another blind person, and I experienced that at different parts
Yep.
in my life. But yeah, a lot of this is to raise awareness and to raise adverse advocacy, and just to, yeah, just speak out for our community.
Yeah, definitely. That's also something I really thought about when you came up with this podcast idea and asked me to collaborate with you on it. Because to be honest, even on my own channel, Tunnel Eyed Life, I have more lifestyle type content on there. I haven't had the opportunity to do a lot more visually impaired live content on there. I really do want to, but I guess I'm just not as comfortable with that side of me quite yet. And so that's another reason why I really love this podcast idea. This gives me an opportunity to also have a conversation and talk with someone like you who understands that part of me in a deeper level. So I know this is going to be a fun little collaboration project. And I am really looking forward to where this ends up. And hopefully, it'll also urge me to do my own content on my channel to share a lot more about my visually impaired life. Next, let's talk about what type of resources have you used or what type of training have you done as a blind visually impaired person.
O&M training, like I said, I didn't start using my white cane until like 4 or 5 years ago, but I did get an O&M trainer. Me used a white cane when I was living in Southern California. I hope to, after I get licensed, because that's my main focus right now, I want to um, start again with the process of getting a guide dog. I've also, some of the other resources I've used, Department of Rehabilitation. The first time I went to college, like almost 15 years ago in 2012. And then I
Yeah.
started back up again when I moved up to Sacramento to help me secure employment up here.
And also, DOR is basically like your bridge to all of these resources to help you get through life. Outside of the vocational stuff that Nora just talked about, they can also help you with assistive technology, adaptive services, training programs, and so much more. We'll definitely get more into the specifics of those things that I just told you here on the podcast in another time, in another episode, for sure. To cap off this part of the episode, talking about the blind part of you, with everything else that you've shared, I can tell you're really in a good spot right now with your blindness. That is really awesome. So let's reflect a little. If there is ever something, what would you like to tell your younger self?
I think back on just what we were talking about earlier on how just I had a hard time getting to where I am now and just accepting it and thinking like, I'm quote unquote normal, but normal doesn't exist. Normal is a setting on your washing machine, basically. But just going back and saying like, hey, you're not normal, but that's okay. What you're facing, you, you may have to work at it, but you will get there, but also that is what makes it's so great. It's what makes you special. I feel like I've had to fight, but I feel like I've gained so much from it too. Like, and I have so much more to give to the world. And yeah, if I could talk to my younger self, I would tell her like, hey, I know you're struggling now, but everything's gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay. You're gonna make it.
Yeah, that sounds really great. And yes, I agree. We will make it, or we will somehow find a way to make it for sure. All right, so we have gotten to know the blind part of Nora. So it is now time to get to know more about the therapist part of Nora. Okay, so how did your journey to the world of psychology start? And how did you eventually land on becoming a therapist?
Well, I kind of like to say that I never really found psychology, but it more like found me. Like, I did not do well in school at all. And that might come as a surprise to some people who like knew me in college and especially grad school because I did exceptionally well in grad school, but I barely passed high school, like barely. But when I started going to college and junior college, I changed my major so many times. I changed it like 5 or 6 times. I did not know what I wanted to do. Um, and even when I transferred to university, I didn't originally go as a psychology major. I think I was going into teaching at the time. And so I transferred to Cal State San Bernardino, for the credentialing program. And then at some point, I just realized okay, I don't really want to be a teacher. So I had to sit with myself and really do some like exploration and like soul searching and saying like, okay, what really interests me? Like, and and I mean, maybe we can kind of go into like the backstory of that at another time too. But I was in therapy at the time. I was seeing the school therapist like, hey, I kind of would really like to do what she does. But actually, no, if I think about it, that wasn't it. Because I originally, when I went into psychology, I was part of like 3 research teams. So I actually wanted to do research. What was funny is, um, at first I wanted to go into research, and I never wanted to do therapy. I never wanted to be a psychotherapist. But now I can't imagine doing anything else with my life. When I finally like landed on that, when I found psychology, I realized this is what I should have been doing like the entire time. Because I would think, again, I would think back on my past, life, and I would even going back to like high school. I remember some friends saying like when they talk to me, it's they almost feel like so safe, like they can tell me things that they would never tell anyone else and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've always had this sense of compassion, the sense of empathy. So I've always kind of been a therapist. That has been my dream. And I mean, I guess when I finally found it, it did work.
Currently, what is your career status or title as a therapist?
Still known as an associate. So basically, on the psychotherapy like ladder or rung, there's three levels. There's a trainee, which that's what you are when you're still going to school, and you collect a certain number of hours to be able to like graduate. So you're already seeing clients clinically while you're in school, and then your associateship is the big one. That's where you collect like all of your hours, and you have to get like 3,000 hours to be licensed. So that's a lot of hours, and it usually takes, if you work the whole entire time, like it usually takes around, like it took me like 2.5 years to get all of my hours. I actually worked past that because it took me a long time to pass my law and ethics exam because I'm not a great test taker. And then afterwards is basically your final step. After you've collected all of your hours, you can apply to take your clinical exam, which is the final step. And after that, after you've passed that, you're fully and completely licensed. You're an LMFT, and you can work for yourself. You can go into private practice. You can do whatever, basically. And that's pretty much where I am. Like I'm on the final step. It's almost surreal. Like when I first turned in my application back in December, the BBS guy who took it, he's like, "You're on the final step. How does it feel?" I'm like, "Oh my God." It's something I've been
Yeah.
working towards for the last like 11 years of my life. So with
Yeah.
everything just kind of accumulating and everything kind of falling into place, it's honestly kind of overwhelming, really, but in a good way.
Yeah, it does seem like a long road, but you're so close now. You're almost there to the finish line, and I know you'll definitely get there to the full license pretty soon.
I can I cannot wait for that day
Yeah.
when I walk out of that testing room and they say that I'm finally licensed.
For now, though, as a associate going for your full license, what are your specialties and what type of therapy do you focus on?
So I specialize in treating individuals with ADHD. Mostly people, like me, who have been diagnosed like later in life and trying to navigate their life and trying to find, skills and techniques to help them. It's funny because I actually started specializing in it like maybe two or 3 years before I went for my own diagnosis, and I actually recorded my first video on ADHD and mental health, and I did say in
Yes.
that video, like, "Why do you care about this, Nora? You don't have ADHD." And I watched that over again, and I'm like, "Oh, correction,
Yeah.
I do." But
Yeah.
yeah, so I specialize in treating people with ADHD, but I'm also very versatile. I use a lot of different things in my practice, but in my practice right now, I mostly work with people who have been through trauma. I've done a video on like CPTSD, which is complex trauma, which is mostly like childhood trauma and things like that, or trauma that um, instead of just like a one-time big trauma is a bunch of like little t traumas, little, but that we may call like little psychic drops of acid because they're really affecting you and you might not know until it's it really starts to pile on there. But I use DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy, but I really also really like to get like deep down and really explore and kind of work on like the roots of um, where that all like comes from and help my clients heal kind of from the inside out. So I use somatic and body work. I use a form of therapy called CRM, which is the complex resource model,
Yeah.
which I'm also going to do another video on that. But yeah, those are mostly mainly my main focus. But like I said, I'm very versatile and I'm really lucky to have the supervisor that I have because not only does she help us like navigate our work and navigate our clients, but she's helped us like trained and help like expand our scope of competence. So she had us go through like brain spotting training. So now I'm trained in brain spotting, just level 1 right now. Yeah, just a lot of great stuff. Like, and so I'm really lucky in that sense to have found the supervisor that I'm working for.
It's great that you're so versatile and cover a lot in the field while also continually exposing yourself to learning more and gaining skills in your toolbox.
As a side note, that's another reason. There's many reasons, but that's another reason why I love this field so much is because like you're always learning. Like you never stop learning. Even after I get licensed, like you are required to get a certain number. I think it's like eh, um 18 to 36. I know that's a big range, but hours of continuing education units. But even after that, like I'm always curious to know what type of webinars I can get into or trainings or just yeah, I'm always watching videos, like looking into research and things like that. And going back to, how I said about my visual impairment, just being curious. Like I'm very curious. Like I love learning. I love finding out things. I love all of this stuff. And, this field just you are always constantly doing that. And I love that.
I love that you said it like that because your passion for all of this is really shining through, honestly, the more you talk about it. And that's great. It's really a beautiful thing when your passion kind of mixes in with your purpose. For the next episode of this podcast, we'll be tackling the relationship between mental health and blindness. That is definitely something that I deal with actively in my life. But for you, though, Nora, as a therapist yourself now, can you share a little bit about the benefits that therapy can bring to someone?
Yeah, and not only have I worked in the field of psychotherapy for the last like 5 years, but I've also been going to therapy like off and on for the last 10 years, but very consistently, yeah, for the last 4 or 5 years. But working on myself, working on my own growth is so very important to me as well. So yeah, I think a lot of people can benefit from therapy. It's just it's a great thing. Like you can explore yourself, you can grow, and where else do you get and the whole entire hour of someone just listening and not judging and just paying attention to you and only.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I mean, I've also been consistently going to therapy since 2019. That's not something that I talk about a lot, but I honestly love it so much. It has basically saved my life. I've grown so much because of it, and it's just amazing. All right, now that we met the blind therapist and got to know the background that led to that name, Nora, what can we expect next here on the channel as far as vlog content?
My next video is more than likely going to be on CRM and body work. But yeah, I definitely want to make more content on, ADHD and mental health.
Awesome! I'll definitely look forward to what's to come here on your channel with your vlogs and this podcast as well. I'm really excited to see how this podcast journey that we also just started together will go and how far it'll take us. Now, before we end this episode, are there any last minute thoughts or advice that you would like to add and share?
I guess what I would say to, everybody out there, because I've got all sorts of messages from, yeah, people like my my roommate and like friends of mine and um, Lyft drivers and things like that. Like I don't know really like what to do or how to help you or exactly how your, eyesight works. Um, can I ask you questions? Is it okay? And like, like it almost seems like people are trying to like tiptoe, around me. And I get it. Like I get why that's happening. But what I would like to say and the advice that I would give, if nothing else, is just be curious, like embrace curiosity. Like I am okay with questions because I don't want anybody to like assume that they know like what I'm going through or they know how to treat me.
Yeah.
What I would say is just be curious, like ask me questions. Like if you don't know, just like ask. I'm okay with answering questions. I'm okay with telling you what's up, what's going on. And if I'm not okay with something, I'll also tell you that. So if there was nothing else, it would be that. Just be curious.
That's so great. Yeah, I second all of that. So I hope this resonates with people as well. Now, last thoughts from me. As your co host, Nora, I just want to thank you for letting us get to know more about your background story. So I hope everyone enjoyed getting to meet you and getting to know more about you today. You really are an amazing human being. I'm so grateful to not only know you as a friend, but also be your collaborator on this podcast and be your editor for all of your digital media endeavors for the blind therapist. I really appreciate all of that. So thank you. So
And
yeah.
I look forward to meeting and knowing every one of you too. So yeah, I would love to interact with everyone in the comments. Leave your questions too, because we really want to hear from you guys. If you have any questions about visual impairment or mental health or ADHD or just, anything, just reach out. I also have a Facebook page, The Blind Therapist.
That's it. We are done with the first episode of the Life Beyond Sight podcast here on the Blind Therapist channel. We hope that you enjoyed watching and listening along with us. Next episode is going to be about mental health and blindness, so hope you come back and check that out. We'll have all the links and information regarding all the videos referenced in this episode today, as well as how you can connect with us in the description below. Lastly, every little interaction really does help us out a lot. So don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell so you don't miss out on any future content. And we will see you next time here on Life Beyond Sight.
Bye.